Today's daf, Be'ezer Hashem, is Masechta Menachos Daf Yud Aleph, number 11. And we will begin. Okay, hold on. Okay, today's daf is Masechta Menachos Daf Yud Aleph, and we will begin on the bottom of Daf Yud Amid Beis. Bottom of Daf Yud Amid Beis. So before we begin, let's just quickly review, and we've seen this picture many times before. So part of the flour offering, right, was you have the flour with the dough with the oil, plus they added a handful of lavona, frankincense, and they come in pieces, as you see. His little pieces in there. Now, after the Hagosha, remember the Kohen has to do the Kemitza. Now here, the Kemitza has to be done only with flour, okay? As you can see in the picture, only with flour. And therefore, what they did was, he shook the levoin, the frankincense, to one end of the vessel, of the pot, and then he did the kemitza with his fingers. As you can see, he's not using 4 fingers, he's using 3 fingers to fill a handful of this flour. And there's a unique method of how to do it, and we're going to discuss that today. But basically, he karate chops his hand into the bowl, and then folds his fingers, then twists his hands, and turns it upwards, and let the extra fall out. And that's how he does the kemitza, and then places it into another vessel with another kohen holding that other vessel. So, in our Mishnah, it said like this: Kamatz. Okay, we go back into the Gemara. Kamatz va'ola b'yadei tzrar or garga melech. Let's say he did the kemitza, and there wasn't just flour in there. There was a rock in there or a piece of salt. We go to Amid Beis. Amid Aleph, Yud Aleph and Amid Aleph. There was a piece of frankincense in that fistful, so it's puzzle. It's puzzle because you're not. It has to be a handful of just the flour or just the dough, but not the flour. Just the flour and the oil, and not anything else. So the Gemara says, Kol Hani Lameli. Why did it say 3 examples of obstructions that come into your hand? You have the rock, or a piece of salt, or a piece of lavoina. So the Gemara says tzricha. I need all 3 cases. The Tanitz, right? For just a pebble, okay, that will passel the kemitza. Mishum de la basa kravihi. You're not makriv a pebble onto the mizbeach. Ava melech, but salt, the basa kravihi. Melech ends up on the mizbeach anyway, because prior to them doing the kemitza, prior to them makter on the mizbeach, they put salt on it. Let's take a look at the picture. You see the fellow bringing after he did the kemitza and put the flour into the pot, he puts all the lavoina there. Okay, so then he takes all the lavoina of the offering and puts it into the pot, into the kemitza pot, and then as he makes it up to the mizbeach, he puts salt on there, on the entire kemitza, and then burns it. You see, he turns it over and burns it on the mizbeach. So I would have thought that since the salt ends up on the mizbeach anyway, so if there's little salt is in the fistful, emet is kasher, maybe that the kemitza is kosher. The Itan Melech would just say salt, who was never part of the mincha to the very beginning. But frankincense from the very beginning is put into the same pot as the flour. As you can see, they put frankincense into the flour. So I might think if the kemitza ended up with a piece of frankincense, it would be also kosher. Maybe that will make it kosher. Kamash Malon, it's not kosher. So the Gemara says, the reason why it's not kosher, because you're missing some flour in your hand. And that's why if you have too much flour or missing flour because a rock or a piece of salt is taking the place where flour should be, so that's why it's invalid. Says the Gemara, my area, why does the Mishnah say because Mishim Chasav Yaser Because once you have a rock on your palm, and that's like an interruption between your palm and the kohen's palm and the flour, because it's a chatzitza, not because you're just missing flour. Not necessarily. If the rock or the salt or the lavoina was on the side, in other words, let's take a look at his hand. If it ended up, let's say, at the edge over here, let's say, a piece of rock or pebble. So it's not a chatzitza because his fingers are all around the flour. It's just taking up space where flour could be. So at both ends, you have that problem of not because of chatzitza, but because you're missing flour there. Now here's an amazing Gemara. You would think that the Mishnayos would discuss how to do a proper kamitza, but it's not true. The Gemara is discussing it. Amalei Abayil Rava. How do you do a kamitza? Like people take a scoopful. So imagine your whole hand taking a scoopful. So Gemara says, that's not true. Zu zeres, zu kamitza, zu ama, zu esba, zu gaidel. The Mishnah lifts us off the different parts of your hand. And what we know as your ring finger is called in the Mishnayos a kamitza finger. So that means that's the end of your finger. So that's where you do the kamitza. It's not a normal scoop where you're using your pinky as well. So how do you do kamitza? El hashvais. Hashvais kalaima, as the Gemara explains, that what you do in the kamitza is as you lift it out of lifting the hand out, as you can see, he's lifting this hand out of the bowl with his pinky. He's going to level off all the extra flour that's on the edge over here, and with the thumb, he's going to level off the top. So therefore, he just has so the pinky and thumb are for leveling off, and that's what it is. That's called the kamitza. Says Gemara, Eicha Avid, how do you do it exactly? You cover your three fingers until you stretch your three fingers until it reaches the palm of your hand. So as you can see in the picture, the person is stretching his three fingers like this, turns his hand upward. Oh, here, you're folding the three fingers. Chayfa means you fold the three middle fingers until it reaches your palm of your hand. Tanya nami hachi. It says take a fistful. I would think it has to be sticking out on the sides. It has to be just the fistful, nothing else. If it was just the fistful, maybe it doesn't mean, maybe it just means to put a little flour on your fingers, on the tops of your fingers. That's what he's supposed to do. He has to fill up the whole entire fistful. So how do you do it? He folds three fingers. I'll pass yoday onto his palm, the kamitz, and that's how he lifts it out, does the kamitza. Now it's easy to rub the top with your thumb and pinky when you're dealing with flour. The machvis or macheshes, which are baked type of minchas, which were folded, but still it's not like a flour, powdery like flour, and you can't use your left hand, right? You have to do the kamitza, moichek, you have to really work hard to level it off with the gudalai, with your thumb, milmala, ube'etzboi katana, with your pinky milmata from the bottom. And it's very hard to level off. I mean, you have a strong thumb and pinky. Says the Gemara, Zuhi avoida kosher shel bebeis hamikdash. That was the most difficult way, and it was the most difficult service in the Beis Hamikdash. So that was the hardest avoided to do in the Beis Hamikdash. Says the Gemara, Zahu v'sulai. There was no other hard avoided to do in the Beis Hamikdash. Lo'ika malika, lo'ika chafina. So what's malika and what's chafina? So let's go in the pictures. Here we go. Let me just get it up. The pictures show us over here that this is the malika. Here's the malika, and malika is right there with the thing. And chafina is taking a fistful of getaris. The Kohen Gadol had to take a fistful of getaris, and he poured it into a scoop, right? and then brought the fistful of Keteres with a shovel of coals into the Kodesh Kodashim. So imagine the Kohen Gadol with a shovel full of coals in his right hand and a scooper of Keteres in his left hand. And then he had to somehow, as you can see in the picture, turn the scooper over so that no Keteres in the scooper falls on the floor. And then he had to, use his two thumbs to turn it over into his two full fistfuls. So that makes it one of the most difficult. And here he is, the Kohen Gadol, with prior to that, putting the scoopful into a scooper. Anyway, with the help. But in the Kodesh Kodashim, it was a very hard thing to do. So those are also very hard. What makes Malika hard is because you need to really stick your finger very hard into the back of the bird. So that's also a very difficult avodah to do. Ella, so the Gemara says the Kemitza with the Malika and Chafina is achas ma'avodas hakadosh shabamigdash, one of the hardest things to do as a kohen. Omar Papa said, Pshitili, it's simple to me. Maloi kimtzai could come in shape. Maloi kimtzai is like the normal koimitz as we discussed before and with the pictures. Papa said, ask the question, how much beroishe etzbaisav mayu, if he did the kemitza with his tops of his fingers, when that started from the side, mimata melmala from the bottom to the top, what's the din? Teku. So you can see it on the pictures. A normal kemitza, you karate chop your hand into the bowl, and then the kohen folds his three middle fingers, turns his hands upward, and lift it out. That's kemitza. So Rav Papa asked the question: what happens if he did this? You're going to go to the picture. Okay, he did this. He stuck his hand with the fingers like this. You see the picture? He stuck his hand on top with the back of his hand facing outwards, and did the kemitza that way. So he didn't karate chop his hand into the bowl. Okay, that's but he still got it. Or what he did was he put his back of his hand into the flour and started moving his hands, and through the sides of his hand, the flour came into his palm. Or milmata, he stuck his hand like he's digging with his fingers into the kemach, and then lifted it up that way. So all these questions Rish Lakish asked, what would be the din? Is that a normal kemitza? And the Gemara answers, Rav Papa did not resolve that. Rav Papa said, Pshitali, it's simple to me, Maloi chafnav kid chafni inshi. And Maloi chafnav, the double scoopful, double handful, is like what we just showed, what the Kohen Gadol did. Rav Papa asked the question, Chafim b'rashe etzbais is mahu, minatz dodim mahu, Chafim bezu v'kerben zu etzazu mahu, teku. If the last question is easy. He took a scoop of one hand and scoop of another hand and then joined them together to have a full handful. Is that good enough? What's etzba'osav and what's minatz dodim? So we could look at the picture. The picture will show you that if he sticks his fingers this way with his with his fingers straight in, and that's how he put, and he somehow had the ketairis brought into his hand little by little until they filled up. Okay, then he chafim milmata lamala, or if he stuck his hand all the way deep and then lifted it up. That's according to the Shita Begretzes. Anyway, so the question was, are those kosher? So the Gemara says no, we don't know. Rav Papa asked the question. If you put the kaimitz, we learned that you're supposed to put the kaimitz, as you can see in this picture, into a pot, into another pot. What happens if you stuck it on the side of the wall of the pot? Or if you turn the pot over and put it on the back side of the pot? That's the question. Rav Papa. If you connected the kaimitz on the side wall of the kelim, is that good? Is that good? At the end of the day, do you need the kemitza to be in the keli? And it is, which just albeit stuck on the side of the wall. Or you need to actually put it on the bottom of the bottom floor of the keli, and it's not teku. You turned over the keli and you connected the kmitza on the back of the keli. What's the din? You need to it be in the keli, and it is, because if you're dealing with a keli, as I'm going to show you over here in this picture, if you're dealing with a keli that has a base kibble, a place where it can hold something in the back of the keli, as you can see in this picture, so maybe it's good. It's in a keli, or it's not in the normal way where you put things in. You put the keli upside down. Or you need the keli to be in its normal manner, and it's not. So teku, the Gemara remains by a question. Now the Gemara deals with another question. The Mishnah deals, Keitzedu Oisa, what is Kmitza? You stretch your fingers and you bring it over to your palm of your hand, like we've seen. Riba Shamna. Now you're supposed to put a loik shemen in there. Let's say you put more than a loik shemen in there. Chisa Shamno, you put too little oil into your mincha. Chisa Levaina, so you're supposed to have a Kmitza of frankincense. If you're missing, if you put too little, and here it doesn't say if you put too much. But anyway, if you put too much levina, the Gemara is going to discuss that. Psula, in all these cases, it's possible. What's the case if you put too much oil? Rab Lazar says, really, you're supposed to have one like shemen per the flour offering. You're going shifra loshne lugin. But in your case, this guy decided to put 2 lugin of oil in his flour offering. So that's too much, so it's possible. Says the Gemara, the loitmik, you're going to arbe shemen the chulim shemen the chavete. What do you have to make this that he put too much? It was mafresh 2 lugs for this mincha. You could say that he put in a little bit of oil of olive oil that he has at home, or he put oil belonging to his friend's mincha and he put it into his mincha. If you put your personal non-holy oil or your friend's oil into your mincha, loy posel, you don't invalidate the mincha. If that's the case, maskav lor zutra bartuvia el miata. If that's the case, mincha's choita, a mincha of a sinner, which you have no oil at all, the posel bal shemen. But the Mishnah implies that if you do put oil in it, the mincha becomes posel. How is that possible? If you're gonna put your own oil and you say, "Oh, this is for my minchas chayta," or less late, you can't passel it because it's not. It's like chulin oil. Either chulin the chavret, if you can use your friend's oil, or you can still use oil. For amrit like passel, you told me it's not passel. So how do you passel a minchas chayte with oil? So the truth is that in every mincha, the Gemara is going to say that if you put the oil and the oil belongs to the oil that you're using for your mincha, if you use home oil, right, and you added too much oil, or you used your friend's oil, certainly it passes it. But I might have thought, loy miboya, Kamar. The Mishnah doesn't have to tell you that. Loy miboya, it's not only the chulin, the chavrete, the pasel. That's for sure passes the if you put strange oil into the mincha, besides the holy oil, you passel the mincha. But if you separate 2 jugs of oil for this mincha, and you say these 2 jugs of oil should go for this mincha, each one separately could be the oil for the mincha. So I might think if you put both of them into the flour offering, it shouldn't passel. I would say it doesn't passel. Kamash Malon that it does passel. How did Rab Lazar see that in our Mishnah? Rab Lazar had this question on our Mishnah. The Mishnah says you added its oil. Listen to Riba Lo Shemen. Why didn't the Mishnah say that you added any oil? The Mishnah is teaching you. Even if you put 2 lugs of oil there and you separated 2 jugs of oil specifically for this mincha, if you put it into the flour offering, you invalidate the flour offering. Turn on bottom. After you do the kmitza, you have to put the kmitza. Where do you put the kmitza? After you put the kmitza, or the Mishnah, what do we say? You did the kmitza. You put the kemitza into the pan. Then you put all the levina that was in the original pot into the pan with the kemitza. Let's say you come back to the original pot and it's missing the levina. So the Tanra Rabbanan. So that's what our Mishnah says, that if you're missing the levina, then you invalidate the whole carbon. The whole mincha is no good. Tanra Rabbanan, Chasrav Omda Al Kairat Echad Psula. The Tanakama over here holds, this Brisa holds that if you just have one piece of frankincense left, it's possible. Ashnei Krotim, but if you have two pieces of frankincense left, Kasheret, the mincha is still kosher, de Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon said, Al Kairat Echad Ksher, if you only have one piece left, but Pachas Mikan, but if you have less than one piece, let's say you have a half a piece, Pesula then invalidates the mincha. Our Mishnah, by the way, holds that if you're missing any of the pieces from the original mincha, the whole thing is possible. Says the Gemara Amud Beis, Vatanya, did Rab Shimon really say that? If you're missing one piece of that one piece of the kemitza is all you need? But we learned in a brisa that says kaimitz ulevaina shechasa kolshu pasal. This brisa seems to say that Rab Shimon said that if you're missing any of the levina, it's pasal. So Tani, you have to redo this brisa. Kairit levina shechasa kolshu pasal. It means if you have a piece of levina that's missing a piece to it, so it's only a half a piece, only then it's possible. So that's the opinion. If you want, I could tell you, kan belevina haba im hamincha, kan belevina haba b'fnei atzma. Really, levina that comes with the mincha, Rabbi Shimon holds that if you have a flour offering with the mincha and you lost some of the levina, that's okay as long as you have one piece left to put on the mizbeach. However, that brisa that says if you lose any of the pieces of levina, it's possible, is because there you only made a mincha of levina. If a person says, I promise to bring a scoopful of levina to the Beis HaMikdash, so that's a permitted mincha. So then if you drop one out of the scooper, so then the whole mincha is invalid. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Gimel machlokes of Dava, there's a three-way machlokes. Everybody holds that when you make the mincha, you have to put a scoopful of ketoris, of levina there. But what happens if you lost it after you did the kemitza? That's the question. You have to have the scoopful in the very beginning and a scoopful at the end. You can't lose any of the levina. Rabbi Yehuda holds that all you have to have is two pieces remaining at the end. All you need is to have one piece of levina left, and that's okay. And they all three darshan from one pasuk. Pasuk says, take the spice, the frankincense that was originally in the original pot, and put that along with the kemitza. You have to take the whole levina that was in the original pot. Rabbi Yehuda says, it says, es kol halavoina, means any piece of the levina, even if it was just one piece. But then the Torah adds the ace. So ace, l'rabis karet echar, you need two pieces. So you have to have two pieces of levina left, and the mincha is still good. Rab Shimon es leidarish. Rab Shimon doesn't darshan that. So he says any piece of that levina, original levina, will still validate the mincha. That's the machlokes is with the levina that's coming with the mincha. If you're making a donation of a scooper of levina, everybody would agree. We saw that before. That from the very beginning you have to have a scoopful, and from the very end, when you're putting that whole scoopful onto the mizbeach, you can't lose one piece. And that's why you need al hamincha to teach you that only if the only time we say that you could remain, you don't have to have all the levina, is if you're bringing it along with another flour offering. But if that's all you're bringing, if all you're bringing is levina, then you have to have every single piece. V'amar Rabbi Yischa bar Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Machlokes b'levoina haba min mincha, aval b'levoina haba b'bezichen de'riakol shnei kamatzim b'tchila, shnei kamatzim b'soif. As we saw before, that there was bezichen, as you see over here in the picture. There were 2 scoopfuls of levoina on the showbread table. So there, if you lose one piece, you invalidate the whole offering. I guess you won't be able to eat the breads. So you have to make sure you have to hold on to that scooper till it was brought on the mizbeach, not losing one piece. Says the Gemara Pshita. Why? That's pashut. All you're bringing is levoina. And says the Gemara, no. Kiva, since the Vahade Lechem Kasi, you're bringing it. That's just those 2 scoopers represent the Lechem Haponim. Asher al Mincha Dami, Kamash Malan. I would think that you could lose a piece. Kamash Malan, you can't lose a piece of that mincha, of that bezichin, of the levoina that's in the bezichin. Pliga bar Rab Ami Rab Yitzchak Napcha Chab Ad Machlekes b'levoina haba min mincha levoina b'cham b'fnei asn v'akol kabis pil v'kabis b'tzayif. Rab Ami and Rab Yitzchak Napcha had an argument, and one held that a levoina that's the only donation that you're donating, then you're not allowed to lose a piece. And others observe that no, that even a levoina that is your mincha, you'll still have the same machlekes between Rabbi Shuda and Rabbi Shimon, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to have 2 pieces left, and according to Rabbi Shimon, you have to have 1 piece left. One more minute, and then we'll stop. Chisa levaina outside psula. So if you're missing any of the levaina, it's possible. As we saw, that our Mishnah is very strict, that you can't drop or lose 1 piece of levaina. You have to take all the levaina and put it along into the kamitza pot, kamitza pan. But you can't add to it. You can't add more. The Mishnah's mashma, ha Yasser, if you add more levaina, it's kashera. But Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Yasser, if you add more levaina, psula, it's possible. That you added, yet you made a donation of 2 kamitzas. So therefore, if you made a donation of 2 kamitzas of levaina, well, then it's possible, because you made a donation of too many. You're overabundant. It's supposed to have 1 handful of levaina. But if you add just 1 or 2 pieces, that's okay. But if you're going to give two fistfuls of levaina into your mincha, you passel the mincha. One more. If you made a donation of 2 kamitzas and you put them both into the first pot, but before you took the kamitza out, one fistful of levaina was lost or disappeared, or you took it out. So then you didn't passel the kamitza. But acha kamitza, if while you were doing the kamitza, there were 2 fistfuls of levaina in that mincha, hukbu, that means it ready passeled the mincha. The Yamar Rabbi Chama Bar Chama, Rabbi Bar Chama said, Hifrish abal kamatzon l'shnei bezichim ba'avdu shnai mehem. Let's say you put 4 scoopers onto the table, and 2 of them were lost. Koidim silib bezichim. Before you remove the bezichim off the table, originally when you put it down, you put 4 scoopfuls. Then when you came to take it off, 2 of them were missing already, and 2 of them you want to take off now. Lo yukbud, you didn't have a problem. But la'achas silib bezich, if you take off 4, and then somehow 2 disappeared, then hukbul, then all the mincha, that all lechem upon him cannot be eaten. You can't be makravet, because you're adding too much levaina. Why did Rabbi Mechama have to say this extra case? Isn't that the first case? Hainu hach, and it says Umarak, Mao the same, Kivin the Brir Koimis Dida, Kivin Chiki Yisman La Parka, Command the Prika Dame, Kamashmalan. The Chiddush is that if you had 4 scoopers on the table, right? So even if you didn't remove it, and it reached the time that the musaf was done, where technically it was the time to now remove the bezichen and eat and makar of the bezichen and eat the lechem upon him. If at that time it was lost, I would think that it doesn't matter. It's as if it was removed already from the table, and the whole lechem upon him is invalid. Kamash Milan, as it doesn't matter. It's still kosher as long as when you took it off the table, there were just 2 left. I don't care what happened to the other 2. If there were just 2 bezichen there left, that with 2 scoops, that's fine. Even though originally there were 4, and you potentially could have removed that at a different time, but you waited and somehow 2 disappeared. So then the bezichin are good, and you can eat the lechem upon him. So that ends the daf Yud Aleph. Okay, good Nacht, everybody, and